Anthropic just released the world's most powerful AI, and within days, the United States government forced it offline. Not a fine, not a recall by the company, a federal export control directive, citing national security. That ordered Anthropic to cut off access for foreign nationals, and left it no choice but to pull the model for everyone. The announcement page is still live right now, and sitting right at the top is a quiet little notice: access suspended, no timeline given. This is the story of the afternoon Washington reached into the most safety-obsessed company in tech and pulled the plug. Welcome to the Founder Files, Beyond the Brand. To understand what happened on June 9, 2026, you need to understand what Anthropic actually is. This is not a scrappy startup chasing clout. Anthropic was founded in 2021 by Dario Amodei and Daniela Amodei, along with several other senior researchers who walked out of OpenAI specifically because they were worried about AI safety. That is the founding mythology. The company's stated mission is the responsible development and maintenance of advanced AI for the long-term benefit of humanity. They have built their entire public identity around being the careful ones, the adults in the room, the lab that pumps the brakes before everyone else hits the gas. And for years, that identity held. Then came Mythos. Mythos 5 is Anthropic's most capable model ever built. And according to Anthropic's own launch statement on June 9, it has, and this is a direct quote, the strongest cybersecurity capabilities of any model in the world. Let that sit. The company, founded by people who left OpenAI over safety fears, just announced it had built the most powerful hacking tool on the planet. To be fair, the framing was defensive. Mythos 5 was designed to help cyber defenders protect critical infrastructure. But the capabilities do not care about intent. A skeleton key that opens every lock does not ask who is holding it. Anthropic knew that. And they released it anyway. Twice, actually, under two different names. Here is where the story gets genuinely strange. Fable 5 and Mythos 5 are the same model. One model, two names, two audiences. Mythos 5 is the raw version, restricted to a small group of vetted cyber defenders, critical infrastructure providers, and select biology researchers. You cannot simply sign up for it. Fable 5 is what the rest of us get. The same underlying neural network, but with a layer of safety guardrails placed on top. When those guardrails detect a restricted query, the system silently reroutes that request to the older Claude Opus 4.8. You receive a response. You may not know it came from a completely different model. According to Anthropic, those guardrails only trigger in fewer than 5% of sessions on average, which means 95% of the time, you are getting the full Mythos-class response from the most powerful cybersecurity AI ever released to the public. And for 13 days, it was included in your subscription for free. The pricing alone was a signal that something unusual was happening. Fable 5 launched at $10 per million input tokens and $50 per million output tokens, which Anthropic noted was less than half the price of its previous Mythos preview. On the Claude API and usage-based enterprise plans, it was available right away. But on subscription plans, Pro, Max, Team, and seat-based enterprise, Anthropic rolled it out cautiously. From launch day, June 9, through June 22, it was included on those plans at no extra cost. Then, on June 23, it would be removed, usable only through paid usage credits. Roughly 2 weeks of free access, and then a deliberate throttle. Come in, but not too fast, and not too many of you. The economics read less like a normal product launch and more like a company tapping the brakes on its own release. But the most dramatic chapter of this story did not start on June 9. It started 2 months earlier. Back in April, Anthropic launched a program called Project Glasswing, a collaboration with the United States government, handing a preview version of its Mythos model to a group of vetted partners so they could hunt for security flaws in the world's most critical software. By late May, the results were staggering. Around 50 partner organizations using the model had already found more than 10,000 high or critical severity vulnerabilities in the software that runs the internet and essential infrastructure. With most partners, each finding hundreds. Project Glasswing proved that Mythos was everything Anthropic claimed, but it also proved something uncomfortable. A tool that can find 10,000 critical vulnerabilities for defenders is, by definition, a tool that could find them for attackers. Anthropic had built a master key, and the question was always who else might get a copy. There was also a quieter reversal that rattled Anthropic's business customers. With the launch of Fable 5 and Mythos 5, the company announced a new rule: mandatory 30-day retention of all traffic on these models. Every query and every response stored for 30 days. Anthropic said it would not use that data to train new models, that it would log all access and delete it after 30 days, and that the goal was to detect novel attacks and jailbreaks. But for enterprises that had built their trust on strict, sometimes zero, retention data terms, a blanket retention policy bolted onto a model launch was a jarring shift. It raised a question that makes every enterprise legal team uneasy. If the rules around your data can change the moment a new model ships, what exactly did you agree to? Now here is the contradiction that will define how history remembers this moment. Days before the June 9 launch, Anthropic's leadership issued a public plea. They called on major global AI laboratories to establish what they described as a coordinated brake pedal on frontier AI development. The core concern was recursive self-improvement, the theoretical threshold at which an AI system begins improving its own capabilities faster than humans can track or control. Anthropic warned publicly that we may be approaching that threshold. They used their platform and their credibility to sound the alarm. And then they launched the most powerful AI model ever made available to the public, the same week, the same company. It is one of the most extraordinary contradictions in the history of the technology industry. You do not get to ring the fire alarm and simultaneously hand out matches. Or rather, you can, but people will notice. And they did. Then, on June 12th, came the suspension. And the reason was not the one you might expect. Anthropic did not quietly lose its nerve and pull the plug. At 5:21 in the evening, Eastern Time, the United States government sent the company a letter. Citing national security, it issued an export control directive, ordering Anthropic to cut off access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 for any foreign national, anywhere in the world. There was no clean way to enforce that. So to comply, Anthropic had to disable both models for every customer on the planet. Go to the announcement page right now and you will find the notice. Access to Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos 5 is suspended, with no restoration timeline given. The same government that had partnered with Anthropic on Project Glasswing had just ordered its newest models off the market. So why did the government do it? According to Anthropic, the letter did not spell out the details, but the company's understanding is that the government believed someone had found a way to jailbreak the model, a method to get around its safety limits. The specific technique, Anthropic says, was a narrow one, asking the model to read a body of software and find and fix its flaws. And here is where Anthropic pushed back, hard. The company says it examined the demonstration and found only minor, already known weaknesses, the same kind of capability that is freely available in rival models, including one of OpenAI's most advanced systems, and used every day by the people who defend networks for a living. Anthropic is complying with the order, but it is also publicly disagreeing, calling the whole thing a misunderstanding, and arguing that one narrow jailbreak is not a good reason to recall a model used by hundreds of millions of people. Zoom out. And what you are looking at is one of the defining tensions of the entire AI era, playing out in real time through a single company's decisions across a single week in June 2026. The tension between moving fast and staying safe, between commercial pressure and ethical commitment, between building the most powerful tools in human history and actually trusting the world to use them. Anthropic did not stumble into this contradiction. They engineered it carefully over 5 years. They built a dual-track system, one model for the government and the vetted elite, one masked version for everyone else. They priced it high enough to discourage casual use. They built guardrails that route sensitive queries to an older model without telling the user. Every one of those decisions reflects a company that is genuinely, deeply uncertain about what it has created. And that uncertainty, paradoxically, may be the most honest thing about them. The story of Fable 5 is not simply a story about one AI model. It is a story about what happens when the people building transformative technology are simultaneously the most qualified to understand its risks and the most financially incentivized to release it anyway. Investors are watching. Competitors are moving. OpenAI is not slowing down. The market does not reward companies for sitting on their hands, even when sitting on their hands might be exactly the right thing to do. And so Anthropic did what almost every company in this industry eventually does. They released the thing. They put guardrails on it. They crossed their fingers. And then the decision to stop was taken out of their hands entirely by a government letter that gave them no choice. Anthropic is complying, and at the same time openly disputing it, caught between a state that can switch off its products and a market that punishes it for hesitating. That is not a clean failure. It is not a clean success either. It is a company trying to hold two truths at once, and it is very much still unfolding. This story is still developing. The suspension notice is live. Anthropic says it is working to restore access as soon as possible, and that it believes the government's decision was a mistake. The bigger questions are not going away. About dual-track AI access, about a vendor changing its data rules mid-contract, and about who really controls a technology this powerful, the company that builds it, or the government that can switch it off with a single letter. If this kind of deep-dive storytelling is what you come here for, subscribe to the Founder Files right now, and drop your take in the comments. Do you think the government was right to step in? Or did Anthropic just prove that no lab can fully control its own creation, even when it wants to? We read every comment. More empires, more untold stories. We will see you next time on the Founder Files.